parents. How is everybody today? Looking forward to a great conversation. I hope some of y'all saw that we were going to be on. If you're not live, we're going to be posting this. So I'm super excited to have someone I've been following. She's been following Beacon Parent for a while, and she goes sort of under her account name is the Truthful Therapist, and she should be jumping on Pam Jaeger here in a few minutes. So, or a couple of seconds maybe. She's written a new book. Here she is. And I want her to tell you about it any second. But Pam has been a therapist for 25 years. Hey, everybody. I love that everybody's jumping on. Oh, and here she is. I just found out when I started following her, she didn't live here, and she's actually fairly local. So, hey, Pam, how are you?
Hi
Hi
there. Can
there.
you
Can
hear
you hear
me?
me? I can. Thanks for jumping on today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and I was just saying we just found out that we're neighbors, so we might actually get to I might actually get to have coffee with somebody that I've met through this whole wild 5 years on social media.
Yeah, I can't wait to meet you in person.
So I was just sharing a little bit. I do want to talk about the book that you just wrote, but give just a brief. I don't want to spend tons of time because we're going to post some of your content and some of your resources, but a little bit of your background in terms of just being a therapist, and then let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now and why you're doing it.
And so I'm a licensed therapist. I've been a licensed therapist since 2005. My license is actually from California. I've made my escape from California to the state
Did
of
y'all hear
Georgia.
that? California therapist. So pay attention. She's going to know what she's talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, I think my training wasn't too bad back in the day. I think someone who is trained now, I don't know if I trust it because there's so much social justice intertwined within the curriculums. But I have a lot of experience. I've worked in schools. I've worked in foster homes or foster care, group homes is what I meant to say, and hospitals and clinics. And I even have my own private practice in Palo Alto. And I was a clinical supervisor for 10 years in a school setting. So I have a lot of experience working with families and teens and mental health issues. And then my quick little story after that is I actually had to leave my profession because of a physical disability in 2017. And then I came back in 2021, and that's when I saw things had changed so radically. They're so radical, so different that I couldn't believe it. And that's when I became quite outspoken because I still couldn't work full time. And they actually were enforcing the COVID mandates, and I was not for that given what I had just been through medically. And so I left and decided to be outspoken and become the truthful therapist and put out resources for parents, help them understand that not all therapists are trustworthy, to use discretion, to stay very involved, and to understand questions to ask so that you know how to how to be involved, so you know what to do and what to say, so you're not intimidated by these therapists that oftentimes mean well but don't always do well.
So I think that's what a couple of things that are so fascinating. And just to clarify, when you were going to be forced to have a vaccine, at that time, it was purely medical. There was zero political going on in your personal life that would have caused you. It was sincerely from this experience that you had had. You're like, this is, I don't feel that this is right for me. And then, so I think that's really important for people to know too, is because there's still some mandates happening. People don't understand that there are still places where mandates are happening, attached to going to school. And so again, it's a lot that we've talked about over the course of the past 5 years at Beacon Parent, is just what does it mean to even be a parent? What does it mean to have rights? What does it mean for your children to have rights? And then you start to weave in this crazy world of therapy. And not that there's not a place for therapy. I don't think anybody argues that. But what would you say the biggest shift was when you came back and you said 17 to 2020, 3 years, and it was that drastic that you had that big of a concern in 3 years?
Yeah, it was hugely different. Of course, the big thing was the gender thing. That was the most obvious piece, and that's what I talk about a lot. But it was beyond that. It was just the complete lack of personal responsibility within the mental health setting. So therapy always used to be about learning how to make better choices for yourself and learning how to improve your relationships and so you can live a more fulfilling life. All of a sudden, therapy became more about social justice and racial justice, because this was 2021, when BLM was really big at the time. And the kids especially were really focused on those topics instead of working on themselves. They also really, they admitted out loud that they were faking it or were exaggerating their symptoms to get away with not doing their homework, and they were using their labels to get away with things. And all of that would never slide before through any political persuasion. So I just thought this was crazy when I was watching it and watching how my colleagues were going along with it, sometimes encouraging it. And I was very new. I'd been on disability for several years, so I wasn't comfortable just saying something outright. But I was asking questions, and most of them couldn't answer my questions.
Why do you think? Why do you think the therapist were going along with it? Was it something that you're just like, this was not something you had been exposed to, and maybe people were already, or was there really a shift happening and people were just going with the flow? Why were they not asking questions? What made you different? I mean, it just seems like if there's that drastic of a change, why are people not asking just basic questions for understanding?
There's the question of the year, really. I think this has a lot to do with the temperament of therapists. They tend to be the go along, get along type.
Okay.
I think that they're also more easily gullible. They believe these narratives. Therapists really pride themselves, and I would say this about myself, that we believe we're more understanding, that we are, we'll accept and be open to people who are different and, maybe don't fit in with society. That's how we're used to hearing kind of more radical things to be able to help them move through that and not have that strong reaction, have that ick reaction. We're trained to not be like that. And I saw these therapists that I just met, when I re-entered, they were very demoralized after being locked down. They were still wearing masks. They were still wiping everything down. About all the COVID measures, I was hoping they could stop that, because at that point it had been known that the masks don't work. There were the studies. New York Times even had that article at that point that said the masks don't work and that it was aerosolized, so wiping down surfaces was futile. So I was telling them that. They're like, yeah, we know, we don't care. They just don't want to. It's weird. I'm a social worker, actually. I don't like to advertise that because that's not popular, and I don't like social workers anymore. But I was trained to believe that I was part of the real social justice, which is standing up for people who can't speak up. And, these people who had severe mental health issues were forced to be in their masks and forced not to be able to have lunch together. So I think it's a combination of being demoralized and the temperament of therapists as a whole. They really just didn't think of questioning. They listened to authority and they believed in it.
So and so you said one of the bigger changes, which yeah, I think we all know, is it's like the trans and detrans and all that. That's like a world that just blossomed overnight. It
Exactly.
just it really just it's like poof, here it is, and it's so broad and there's so much to it. Why, where do you think that sort of came from? Like what was the underlying, it had to have been under the surface for it to blossom like that. So what do you think had been sort of building, or what had you seen as a therapist that you think, oh, that might have been the groundwork that was laid for this to kind of pop open like it
As
did?
a therapist, I didn't really see it. I think it was more afterwards, and I did more research on
Which
it.
is
And
yeah.
yeah, probably things that but I learned that a lot of the money that was donated to BLM went to a lot of these trans activist agencies. I've learned that WPATH is very much an activist organization. It's a very small amount of people that have infiltrated all the other organizations, so they'll actually cite themselves. So we're therapists and all of these different entities. We believe in academia. I don't anymore, but most people still do. They believe in some sense that this is some kind of expert opinion, expert belief system. So they go along with things, but I think it's all been hijacked by a small group of people who, I still don't fully understand how it happened, but I certainly know it's not organic, that it was a top-down operation. And people were weeded out that did speak up over the years. Even people that I wouldn't even agree with, even like a trans person, a man who, calls himself Erica Anderson, was a president of WPATH, got canceled because he thought it was a problem that all these kids were being transitioned,
The children were being transitioned.
that children were. And I mean, I still have a problem with adults, especially those who have severe mental illness, and none of this stuff is being explored. So I saw this, in my research. As a therapist, I just saw people just going along with it and not questioning things.
So help us understand. I think when we were talking, one of the things that I loved, and this is we're actually putting this in our parent hub and the free resources that we have at Beacon Parent. We're putting some of your articles in there to help parents. So thank you for that. But will you talk a little bit, generally speaking, there's some questions that you've come up with, or some pointers for parents. Um, you know, when kids do need a therapist or are looking for some help, or parents are looking for support, how do you navigate finding someone that you would say, I think these are questions that will help you find someone who's valid, who's on track, and who's actually practicing good therapy, not just, sort of random thoughts.
Yeah, there's two things to screen for. One, are you talking to an activist? And you don't want to be talking to an activist. You want to be talking to a professional. People with letters behind their names may not actually be professionals, so you want to screen for that. And
Mm,
then if they might not be activist minded, but they just don't have the skills. These therapy training programs are not training people properly anymore because they are teaching this ideology, and some people may or may not adopt it, but they're not getting the skills they need. So you need to tease out both things. So those are things to think about when you're looking for a therapist. And also, you want to make sure that it's, especially for you and your child, that they will involve you. That's really important.
say it one more
So
time. Say that one more time.
that you will be involved, that the parent needs to be involved in therapy, no matter what. Even the quote unquote bad parents. I'm assuming whoever I'm talking to right now are not the bad parents, but that is always the counter argument. Well, what
Yeah.
about the bad parents? Especially the bad parents, because if
Mm,
the kid is
wow.
going home to a problematic home, you need to help that family, work together, have better communication. You need to help them. That's what even foster care always did. When
That's
they
right.
thought about reunification, the parents got coaching and got counseling. They never talked to a kid in isolation without the parents involved. When I was coming up the ranks, you would say that you were treating a kid in a vacuum, and that does not work. So you must be involved. And that's something I struggled with throughout my entire career, actually, with the parents, trying to get them involved, especially
Right.
in these more affluent neighborhoods. They were busy, and also they just had this mentality that this professional was going to fix their child without them. And I would kept trying to say, no, I need you. I need to talk to you. One, I just need to talk to you. So you don't always have to be in the room with the therapist, but you need to be in constant phone contact. You need to ask what the progress is. You need to find out how the therapist conceptualizes your case. What are the problems? How do they see it? And what are the treatment goals? And you should be a part of setting those treatment goals. These are some of the things to know. Ask a little bit how they work. So, don't be shy to ask them how do they work. Ask them what types of theories they go by when they work. Because if they can't name some psychological theories, that means they don't know what they're talking about. They should have to name. They should be able to name some things. They should say, "Oh, I really like doing cognitive behavioral therapy. I really like psychodynamic therapy. I really like family systems theory, and I work with all these different things depending on what I see." And ask them to explain what that means. They don't be shy about it because don't be intimidated.
That's so incredible. I'm just sitting here, as you're talking, thinking to myself, like, and because I saw this in, starting the schools and being in the classrooms, most of the time, and I think a lot of youth pastors and churches where, we have an audience where a lot of Christians and their kids are involved in youth groups and all, and we have pastors and teachers who are saying, we need parents to be more engaged. You right, and I'm hearing that. I guess I really haven't ever thought about that from the standpoint of you as a therapist saying, no, the parents have to be engaged. We're working with the parents. We're partnering with the parents. That's the goal. Like that's the gold, right? Is when you can get the parent in. And you've swung from trying to get parents involved, and now we're over here where the message is we don't need parents at all. We know better. You know nothing. Keep the parents away, keep the parents out. And so much of the legislation is swinging that way. And so it's like, gracious, what you're really trying to help parents understand is there's that middle ground, right? Where you don't have to be in everything. And maybe there is a time when the child is more open with the therapist, but you have to be engaged in the process. Like
Exactly.
the therapist hasn't been entrusted to raise the child. They're just partnering. And so when you start to
Also,
think
I was going to say, also, I just clinically, for the therapist to be able to make a proper diagnosis or just an assessment or a picture of what's happening with your kid, they need to get to know you and what's happening within your family.
interesting.
They need to know the history. They need to know if there's some medical issues. The child might not know these things or they might not say these things. And they will leave out very important information that will completely change how they will work with your kid. So you've got a therapist that's just going to work with a 12-year-old child who's not going to mention that you just got a divorce this year or somebody has cancer in the family or some other thing, and they're not addressing those things. Now they're addressing their identity instead.
Gosh, I mean, Pierce, this is just so great. I mean, I don't know that I would have, if I were looking for a counselor or therapist, for one of my children, that it would have occurred to me to say, tell me what therapy, like what you use, how you, like what did you say? Are they what therapies you use, or
Yeah, like what theoretical
what
frameworks you go by, what type of therapy you do.
Pierce?
How do you
That
do
was
therapy? Because you're not just being a friend. You're not hiring a friend for your kid. You're hiring a therapist, and they
that
should
is
have
so.
skills.
So getting them to verbalize what they are and how they use them, I mean, that is so great. The other thing I think that I learned from one of the podcasts I did with a friend of yours, January Littlejohn, who's also a trained therapist, and she said, listen, if you go into therapy with your children or with yourself or with marriage or at all, and there is not a point at which when we get to this point, it's over. Like it is not an ongoing forever and ever amen. That's not what therapy is. Therapy is like we're starting here and here's where we're trying to go. When we get there, you're launched. Would you verify that? Would you say that that's valid?
Yeah, there should be treatment goals and there should be progress and there should be check-ins. And if you don't see progress, you should be talking about that with the therapist. That's the other thing. That's why you should be engaged instead of just, I think a lot of parents just send their kid off. I've heard a lot of these stories, especially during the lockdowns. They plop some kid in front of a computer, have Zoom therapy with some therapist who's been transitioning them behind their back. They didn't check in what they were discussing, what they were working on. They just thought they were helping their kid, but having someone to talk to. Well, just having someone to talk to is not therapy. They need to be doing something very specific.
And parents, if I had a dime for every time someone has reached out or every story I've been told or every person I've talked to that they're saying my child was being transitioned behind my back. I mean, letting me know this is happening, and it was happening just right under their nose while the parent was pursuing help, while the parent was actually seeking and trying to find help. So it's not enough to just like find the person, you have to be engaged in the process. Okay,
And
here's
don't be
another.
afraid to pull the plug.
That's yeah, and look for someone else or do something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
here's another one that I think is so critical. So that's just therapy in general, but I think this one's so important. Um, I've gotten used to using the term therapeutic education, even social emotional learning, and how teachers that are right out of college are sitting in classrooms, in circle time with 5-year olds, asking everyone to share with everybody how they feel all the time. I tell parents, I'm like, where in your life would you say to someone it is safe for you to share what's going on in your heart and your family with everybody in a room? Never. And that's
Mm-mm.
just common sense, right? So, but this like sort of social emotional learning therapy all the time throughout the day, I don't think parents are aware how much is happening in schools. I don't, or want to resist it because it is kind of nuts. But am I right in saying warning, 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 warning? It is really happening.
It is really happening. I remember it even happening when I was working at a school 10 years ago. And the teachers thought they were therapists. But what ended up happening a lot was they would say they were helping the kids, but what they were really doing was helping themselves. They were listening to themselves think. They felt good. They had these little rescue fantasies about their students, and it made them feel good to have these little social emotional circles. So you've got these kind of narcissist teachers. Some are well intended, but they're not trained to separate themselves from the feelings, and they end up doing a lot of harm.
And a lot of the social emotional learning happens, correct me if I'm wrong, you will know more than I do, but what I've learned is a lot of that happens through and with school counselors. Is that valid?
Yeah, they bring in people. I did not do that myself, but I know that they bring in people. I know they bring in Planned Parenthood for
Yes, they do.
workshops, and they'll call it emotional
Social
things.
emotional learning and all the stuff.
Yeah. So I would opt out of all of those things. I don't think it's healthy for kids to sit there and think about their feelings all the time. I think it's making all these kids neurotic.
Well, if this were really, if the social emotional learning that was being offered was really, if it were really doing good in our children, we would not see suicide rates climbing for across the board with children, but it's also getting younger.
Hmm. Yeah, I think
So,
there's so many variables there, but this is certainly one of the things. It's certainly not helping. We have no proof that this is helping. But, as people who think they're helping, they'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again without any proof that what they're doing is actually helping.
so what would you say to parents, whose children, and this isn't just public school, but it is public school, and then sometimes in the private schools as well, um, about school counselors and your child being involved in using and with school counselors. Okay, you're shaking your head no before I can even ask the question. So help people understand why that's probably not a great idea, and maybe what's actually what you see happening that might be different than when you were in a school.
So I'm speaking as someone who was a supervisor of school counselors for 10 years. I did a lot of school counseling, and I say almost no. That I think there is a place for school counselors for emergencies. Actually, I think for doing assessments and getting the families involved and helping them get the help outside of school walls. So I think there is a place for some mental health professional in schools. I don't think it should be 100% gone, but I don't think we need to have counseling centers on campus. That I do not think. And the main reason is what we were just talking about before, is then that automatically makes the parent less involved because it's during the school hours and it's disruptive to the school day. And the parents, it's a good, easy way for an excuse really for the parents to not be involved. It sets it up. Here's a big community center for your kids, and the state will take care of your kids instead of you, right? We know this is the theme, and the school counselors feed right into that. So I think parents should vet a therapist on their own, should be bringing the child to the therapist. They should be involved in the process. They should be invested in the process, because the school counseling makes it too easy for the parents to be uninvested.
And so many of the stories that we're hearing, and with the trans
And then
epidemic
all
that
the
you're,
indoctrination. So and then
it's
on top of, and school counselors are trained specifically. It's not just because they just happen to be leaning left and they happen to be the people that believe these things. They are trained to do this, and some of them, as you know, will get in trouble if they don't do it. But it is pounded in them. The Counseling Association, I forgot their acronym, but the School Counseling Association, they're the they're training them to affirm and to keep secrets. This is their training to keep these secrets. So they're not being trained properly, and it's doing damage. Many, many cases that school counselor.
so. Here's one other thought. So parents, school counselors, if you go to again the same place, if you go up into the link and you look for our free resources, there's an opt out form that you can use, and I recommend all the time the surveys, the counseling, the sex ed, all, like opt out, opt out. There's a form that is there for you to use if you'd like, and it'll be in the same place that the articles that we're going to share that will help you with the questions to ask to vet counselors. It'll all be in the same place. Just go up in the link tree and look for free resources, and you can download those. There's one other thing that is really important that I want you to talk about, and it's the Trevor Project.
Oh my
Will
gosh.
you help parents understand what the Trevor Project is. It's not the only one, but it's one that I don't think parents understand, that a lot of the books that were, the book bans and everybody that's scared of the book bans, but some of the books that we're trying to get out of schools, some of the curriculum, there are QR codes that send you, right, certain to different chat rooms and different organizations within the books and within the curriculum sometimes. And one of them that is very prevalent is called the Trevor Project. Will you just share a little bit about what you know about the Trevor Project and why you think this is a hard no?
The Trevor Project should be called the Groomer Project. They have chat rooms from age 12 to 24, and they advertise that. They have one called the Littles Room, like for people who identify as a younger age, which translates as predators. If you go onto their website, anybody try it, go onto their website, it has a button, an automatic escape button, so that if you were looking at the Trevor Project information or on their website or on one of their chat rooms, you can hide it from your parents, from the adults that are taking care of you. They are intentionally trying to keep parents out. If you look at their social media, I did a post on this. They are trying to push parents out who simply believe in truth and reality and saying that they're abusive, or they don't care, they're not compassionate. That Sam Britton, the man from the Biden administration who is known for stealing the suitcases and the luggage. Remember him,
Uh-huh.
the bald guy?
Yeah.
He's very much behind that. The Trevor Project. Do you want him to be influencing your children? So he's one of the influences. But the Trevor Project is bad news, and they even have.
And it's
Um,
big.
it's very big, and it's been funded by the government, and that's Trump is actually trying to get the funding out of it right now. And they're trying to act like they care about the mental health of children, but they're lying. They're telling children that they're going to kill themselves when they're not going to kill themselves. Everything is about suicide. Everything is life or death, and that's sending them off. It's creating these personality disorder behaviors in teenagers who naturally have extreme thinking because that's the nature of a teenager, and they're exploiting that. So they're making your teenagers mentally worse and calling it mental health care.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, and one of the points I've tried to make about some of the surveys over the years. When you have a sixth grader who's taking a survey, having no idea, I mean, they're just doing, parents don't know that the surveys are happening. And one of the questions is not have you, but when was the last time you considered self harm or suicide? Like a seed has been planted.
Exactly. You
That's a
shouldn't be
seed.
prompting that. Yeah, you should not be
Like
prompting that.
someone who doesn't even know what the word suicide is at 10 or 11 years old, they've never considered it. Well, now I'm going to ask the question. Well, now someone's going to give me an answer because I've asked. Well, now the image or the ideas in my head, like that's just a seed. And then that thing, if that starts to, that happens in fifth or sixth grade, and it is happening there, that the questions are on there. You can find them and read them yourself. But then it gets watered for the next 6 or 7 years until you're a senior, and then you're on social media and it's getting watered. It's so dangerous. And so I think parents there'd be no reason as a parent that I would think, I wonder if a book that my child's reading has a QR code that would take me to a chat room, and the chat room would be, I wouldn't be thinking that because I didn't grow up like that. Parents, we didn't grow up exposed. And so
It
a
sounds
lot of times
nice, but it's not.
but right, you have to really, really, really sort of pull all the way back and just ask the questions. Well, if this wasn't happening when I was in school, why is it happening now? Is this beneficial? I mean, you really have to like separate yourself from what you're hearing and do the thinking around it and ask yourself a few questions, because there's so much stuff that's just hidden, and it does sound good. It sounds good. I'm going to say one more thing to parents real quick. The clinics for whether either healthcare or the school-based health centers, those sound great because your child can go get, you know, eye exams, or they might have dental, or they might be some kind of screening, but they can also get vaccines, or they go for a school council can decide, I think your child needs more counseling, and go to a school-based health center for more screening. And those are not employees of the school.
Take them to Planned Parenthood to get an abortion or
That's
birth
right.
control.
It's happening. It
Yeah.
happens. It happens. Oh, if y'all knew the stories. And so when you hear like, oh gosh, that's great that there's going to be more access for families who don't have time two parents working, so they don't have time to go to the doctor. That's great. So whoever's in the school can decide to take your child to the clinic, but you have no idea who's working in the clinic or what they're doing in the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds good that there might be a community-based health, something on the same campus, but they are public private partnerships that have nothing to do with the actual school. They are not employees of the school. And so it gets tricky because you think like a school nurse, that's not what we're talking about. Even
Mm-mm.
like sometimes a school counselor, that's not what we're talking about if there's a clinic attached. And so there's a lot going on. The podcast that I do, I've done so many interviews of this is how this is described and this is what it is. But I just appreciate you just helping parents sort of navigate, how do you vet? And I think one of the things that Beacon Parent, what we're attempting to do is to give vetted resources to parents because it's so time consuming to
Yeah.
do the vetting. And so we're trying to find the people who've done the vetting for you so you don't have to do the work. You just have to do, the research on your own once it's handed to you. So tell us about your books.
Okay.
You've written one, but what's the current one?
So the current one is a children's book. I have it right
Love
here.
it.
So I'm outside and I started mowing the lawn. You guys hearing the? I hope it's not too
We
loud.
can't hear it. We can't hear
Okay, good.
it.
So it's called Froggy Girl. It's a children's book, and it's about a little girl who wishes she was a frog. So she's wearing a little froggy outfit, and everybody affirms her froggy identity because they want to be nice. Her parents give her frog feet because she thought they were neat, and her friends wanted to be nice, even though there would be a price. It rhymes,
So
and then.
cute.
But she still feels sad because she can't do all the froggy things. And then she meets this adorable little turtle, and the wise turtle, helps her learn that she can't be a frog, no matter how many people she tells. And she learns to love the way God made her, beautiful and smart and full of fervor. At the end. So
Incredible.
it's a story about self acceptance. I actually put it into AI, and they compared it to the Ugly Duckling, which I love that because it's just a
Oh,
classic tale. It's a
that's
classic
awesome.
tale of recognizing you can't pretend to be something you're not, and when you try, you end up feeling alone because you usually when you try to become a boy or a girl, you kind of get love bombed in the beginning, but then you really can't be that boy or girl you're trying to be, and you start to feel like an imposter. I've talked to so many people who continue to identify as trans who have said that, and then of course detransitioners, people who no longer believe that they're trans but did at one time. Oh, and the artist is a detransitioner. His name
Oh,
is
that's
Nicholas
amazing.
Blooms. Yeah, and what I really love about it is first of all, he's just a talented artist, but he knew the feelings were deep for him. He knew them. He knew that lonely feeling when he was pretending he was a woman, but it wasn't working out. So there's this page here where she's feeling lonely. I feel like only he could really portray her in
Capture
this
that.
lonely way. It's so powerful.
I just
So,
love it. And
called Froggy
here's
Girl.
I love it. So okay, y'all run, don't walk and get the book. But here's what I love about it is, some of this curriculum in the schools, for 5 year olds, they're being told you can choose what gender you want to be. And then by third grade, it's progressed until here's a few of the genders that you can choose from, like a smorgasbord, right?
Yeah.
And the affirmation that continues to come with it. And so I love the fact that you've written this book to capture the young mind, to plant seeds of truth in a way that is fun, and it rhymes, and it's just colorful and all the things. But even more importantly than how beautiful it is the fact that this is for like 3 to 8 year olds, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just parents, please, 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 if you have little ones, if you have grandchildren, I am so big right now. This is one of my newest things. I'm like encouraging parents to start building a family library, right? Because you can't I mean, you can go to the library to have a fun day out in the summer, but I
Can't
have
trust it,
parents,
just like the schools.
you can't. And I have parents call all the time going, oh my gosh, I took 4 kids. They all got 3 books, and 3 of the books that they've chosen, I don't know until we're halfway finished that there's a picture or there's something in it. And so,
They sneak it
honestly,
in. It's intentional. They
it
sneak it
is.
in. It looks innocent until it's not.
So I love this. I love the fact that this starts really young, and that you've done a great job of just laying the groundwork of truth, and the fact that we have a creator that makes us all perfectly for his purpose and his design. And you've done it in a way that's fun and playful, and that parents can really start to build that library. And this would be one of the books that I would run and get.
And there's no mention of trans or any of those words. I don't want them to even ever learn those
Right,
words.
right.
Yeah.
No
So,
seed planting. It's
no.
just the truth.
Yeah.
And then tell us just there's one other book that you've written, and then where to find you if they want to follow you and what you're doing.
So I'm most active right here on Instagram, which is at the.truthfultherapist. I have a website, thetruthfultherapist.org. That Froggy Girl book, it has its own website, FroggyGirlBook.com. I'm on X or Twitter as Truth Therapist. I have a
Okay.
Substack, Pam the Truthful Therapist, which is where a lot of those articles you're going to be pinning are coming from. Those are the main places you could find me. And then my other book is, it's called A Practical Response to Gender Distress, Tips and Tools for Families. And I made it pink and blue. I use those colors to maybe trick people to think that, oh, maybe this is the other.
There you go. Yeah.
But inside, it goes through and it counters a lot of the general lies that the trans activists say that are in the news, in the media still, about the suicide, how if you don't transition a child, they will die by suicide. I talk about why that data is not proven, and then also clinically why that's just a false statement. I talk about why you can't say there are multiple genders because they say because of clownfish. Well, guess what? We're not fish. It's kind of a simple argument. But some of that, you get bamboozled really. You can
Yeah.
get intimidated. You don't think of it at the moment. So I go through all the different talking points, how detransitioners are only supposedly 1% of the population. They don't matter. Well, for one, I thought we cared about minorities. But two, how do we even know that number? That's a false number. We don't know that. So, and then it goes into practical things of what to do if maybe you know somebody or somebody in your home is trans identified, how to approach them, how to recognize that they might be hiding the secret from you. It has a trans English dictionary, I call it. So it has all the
Great.
terminology and the lingo so that you don't sound like a fuddy-duddy like all of us old people do.
That's good.
It has art by detransitioners in it, so it really helps you understand what they go through. It talks about the harms of the hormones and the surgeries that most things that, quite frankly, I wasn't very aware of before just a few years ago. You know, you don't really think about it. You think, oh, it's cool. You see these people online, they look cool, they're dancing around, they're kind of quirky, and what's the big deal? And then you realize, oh, well, that means they're going to have like cervical cancer, and they're going to have joint problems. Here's a one drawing by a
Incredible.
detransitioner. This
Wow.
girl, her name's Luca Hine. She had a double mastectomy at age, I believe, 16. She didn't even start testosterone yet. They gave her a surgery before she even started hormones. And she now still struggles with joint pain. She has chronic pain. And I actually am someone who has chronic pain for different reasons. And so I really related to her story. And I thought, wow, a young, healthy woman is having chronic pain and it's unnecessary because she had trauma, she had other issues. She was also put on psychotropic drugs very young. And there's a link there too, all of the prescription drugs. So that causes you to dissociate from your body, that causes you to feel maybe have an asexual identity, which they have a flag for. But this is really the medication and big pharma ruling the roost. So here's a drawing by Chloe Cole. It's in the book,
Incredible.
and it's in color. It's even more powerful, but I didn't print it in color. So I mean it's gotten a lot of praise. Walt Heyer recommended it. James Lindsay recommended it. Erin Brewer from Advocates for Protecting Children, she recommended it. Lots of people recommended it, and so it's done quite well for a self-published. I'm actually talking to some media companies to see if I can do like a real,
Get it. Oh, yeah.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
formal publishing and
Yeah.
get it a bigger release because it's just me,
Yeah. I
little
know.
me.
It's hard.
It's tough. Like,
It
come
is.
on.
It's tough.
People
It's
think
hard.
Someone said, "Oh, your marketing team is doing a really good job." I was like, "Oh, you mean me?"
That's me, right? Yes. Well, thank you for all the work you're doing.
You're
And again,
welcome.
if you've jumped on late, you can go up into our resource, just go up into our bio and look for free resources. And there's some articles that Pam has written that will be helpful for you. And then we'll link in the caption where they can find you and the name of the book and all the things. So they can
Thank
follow the
you.
work that you're doing. But I'd love to have you on again at some point and just I thank you for just helping parents understand how to vet, how to be parents in the crazy culture that we're living in. We just want to equip parents, inspire them, but more than that, encourage and equip and empower them.
And believe in
Um,
yourself. Don't be intimidated by
yes,
experts.
yes. You are the expert. I just say God entrusted you, His child to you. So trust yourself and partner when needed with other people. But I really appreciate just your advice and your perspective and your history. So thank you for being on and congratulations on the new book.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
Yes.
All right, Beacon parents, chat soon. Grab the book. Have a great day.